Yeah, they're removing it. Yeah, I can't even explain it. We're gonna talk about it, but it's just, again, like Sony right now is the Twitch of the gaming world too. Like they just time and again are doing the stupidest things they could do. It's unbelievable. Like, I don't know what the justification is. They're like, okay, so Xbox Game Pass is offering an amazing value to their customers. We tried to counter it with our own version. Let's just give up. And like that's it. They're just like, never mind. Control Z after offering it. Like, my understanding is they'll keep this stuff in your library if you redeemed it, basically, through that. But they don't want anybody new doing it, and it's probably because they're seeing revenues drop as a result. Because what basically happens, and you know what, to demonstrate this, I'm gonna pull up good old MS Paint. No other way to do it, right? You know it's gonna be a good day when Luke's pulling out MS Paint. So let's do this. I'm gonna, you know what, just for you guys, I'm gonna fill this in as the background so you can see your comments. Look at me, I'm so considerate. It only kind of works. It only kind of works. Anyway, so how all of these companies work nowadays is they basically have it structured where the only reason that they can justify being more expensive and trading at like 40 times their earnings per share, which is what like Tesla's at, is under the assumption that they'll forever grow. And so for PlayStation and Xbox, there's two like main things that you're looking at. One is revenue increases, and two is like signups for your perpetual income. Because when you're valuing a company, usually what you're doing, if this is the money that the company's making over the course of like 10 years, let's just say this is a 10-year period, then what there's a calculation called net present value that you'll do based on all of these cash flows, and then you discount it based off of the weighted average cost of capital. It's like a whole thing. But basically what you do is you recapture all of this income, and then you calculate how much you have to discount it to bring it back to time period 1, which is today. Or 0, I guess, would be today. But 1 would be when we're evaluating it. So like in one period for the next quarter, whatever. Like how this works is, like I said, you're discounting future cash flows. And the only way this works is if this is getting bigger, right? For Microsoft, their whole thing, let's say like black is PlayStation's projections through, let's say starting like 2013. Like this was the PS4 generation, let's say this. For Xbox, their projections were probably pretty good, but I think they probably ended up doing this for most of the PS4 generation. Xbox just kind of plateaued. They didn't get many console exclusives. They didn't have a lot of excitement around the brand. Sony really started to take off. What's happening with PlayStation right now, maybe blue, is they're trying to compete with Microsoft. And what Microsoft is doing is they're changing their model, their business model, from individual spikes of income in the form of console sales, major releases, that type of thing. And they're changing it to a subscription model based income, which tends to be lower than the peaks of this, but it's much more consistent. So it'll be kind of like this. It grows as user bases grow. But this income is very steady and guaranteed. What PlayStation's been doing is they are relying a lot more on you buying a $70 game. So their income probably spikes up and down like this a lot more. So like, oh, new God of War came out. Okay, awesome. And then it drops down here while everything slows. And then, oh my God, like Bloodborne 2/Knack 3 launch. And then it goes up here. And this investors hate the blue line, because it's really hard to figure out what the company's worth when one flop would mean that this just completely goes away and instead just stays down low. So subscription model based income can be really nice because it's much more it's much easier to just predict. But with unrealistic Knack 3 would go much higher. Yeah, for sure. But what PlayStation's now trying to do is they are like doing the worst of both sides, where they are trying to both get the steadier income of a subscription model with their PlayStation Plus and Premium and Now, whatever crap. And then they're also going and trying to rely on $70 purchases at the same time. And I think what they're realizing with all of this is that you have to do one or the other. Like, you can't go half into subscription models and you can't go half into $70 things. So either you're the $70 company or you're tying it into your subscription model. And that's why, like, this whole thing with The Last of Us seems so freaking stupid. With that, like, The Last of Us Part 2 and The Last of Us Part 1 remake not being included on PlayStation Plus. There's no reason that shouldn't be part of their subscription model. Other than that, they simply want to be able to charge $70 for it now, get for the quick cash, and then maybe later they'll figure out what they need to do with it. But I think what's happening is they're starting to realize that subscription model or their subscription sucks so bad, people aren't signing up for it, and the growth isn't happening. And in fact, people are canceling their memberships. And so they're going to decide to just pull things off of that subscription model so that if you want to play God of War 1 or God of War 2018 or like The Last of Us Part 1, I think they have the non-remade version available on there. But like, if you want to play any of these PlayStation classics, you have to buy it for $10-15 instead of trying to get you to sign up for the memberships. And so it's just freaking stupid across the board because they're doing like, they're half-assing both sides of it, and so they have like a worse reaction from everybody involved. It just doesn't work. Like, either you are the master of one or master of none. And Xbox, say what you will, Xbox has had some serious revenue drops in the last 4 quarters or so. Year over year, their holiday quarter dropped like 12% in revenue, mainly because they didn't have like any games come out last year. But a lot of that is because for Xbox, they don't, like I said, they don't have spikes. Xbox's income looks like this, whereas PlayStation, their income is always going to come out. Let's do like red. Their income, until they swap to a subscription model, is going to be huge spikes and then major dips, and then huge spikes and major dips. And this is exactly what like Rockstar's income would look like, except their periods are going to be like, you know, kind of pretty good with GTA Online, and then massive, ridiculous spikes off the charts whenever they launch a new game like Red Dead 2 or Grand Theft Auto 6. So, I don't know. PlayStation just needs to figure it out. But all it screams to me is that PlayStation is a company right now that has no real clear vision for what they're doing. And that's what makes this whole thing so insane. Sean Layden, I don't think would have done this. I don't think so at all. So, for those of you who missed it, Sony confirms it will remove the PlayStation Plus collection library in May. Those who redeem the 20 PS4 games will still be able to access them as long as they remain subscribers. Once you lose your subscription, you'll lose access to them. From May 9th, the collection of 20 games will no longer be offered. Sony Interactive Entertainment said on Wednesday, games can still be redeemed. Let's see. It's a library of 20 PS4 games, including 10 first-party and 10 third-party, given exclusively to PS5 owners who are also members of the paid subscription service. And now they're just getting rid of it. Big yoink. Never mind. Oopsie. Oopsie poopsie. The collection includes God of War, Fallout 4, Mortal Kombat, Uncharted 4, Ratchet & Clank, Days Gone, Until Dawn, Detroit, Become Human, Battlefield 1, Infamous Second Son, Batman Arkham Knight, The Last Guardian, The Last of Us Remastered, not remake, Persona 5, Resident Evil 7, Bloodborne, and Monster Hunter World. And all of those will no longer be received. It launched along with the PS5 in 2020 as a perk for owners of the new-gen console only. At the time, the CEO of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Jim Ryan, said he hadn't decided if the PlayStation Plus collection would be expanded beyond its initial lineup. Hadn't made up his mind. Seems like he made up his mind now, right? Hardcore. Well, we're going to wait and see how the world receives the Plus collection. You know, which games are played and how much they're played before we make any decisions about that. We think it's potentially going to be a great user acquisition tool. Arguably, if you never had a PS4 and you choose to buy a PS5, you basically get a PS4, right? Yeah, big ol' never mind on that one. big ol' yoink. I guess they just, maybe the subscriptions were just down. I don't know. What I think they came to terms with is what Ryan said is, quote, a subscription model like Game Pass, quote, doesn't make any sense, end quote, for Sony's first party operation, considering its focus on big budget games. Which basically, I mean, this is a concern a lot of us have had with like you think of something like Starfield. Starfield's a huge budget title. And like, if it comes out and does amazing versus it comes out and sucks ass, for Microsoft, it won't really change how much money they make or don't make. It's going to be pretty much consistent across the board. Whereas like for Sony, if they have a huge blockbuster that blows everybody away, they're going to like, you know, rake in ridiculous amounts of money. So I just think it's unfortunate that PlayStation is being so dumb with this, because this just again screams that Sony does not give a crap about value to the consumer. And like, I know I saw some people like Thesaurus, I think it was, in chat were saying that like the Edge controller is great. I think the Edge controller certainly appeals to some people. However, I personally find this thing to be horribly overpriced for what it is. And across the board, like everything Sony's been doing recently just screams that they don't really care about customer value propositions. They are more concerned with maximizing revenues where they can. And so they've given up on like the idea of being for the gamers. It's pure business. And that's why I've said, like, Jim Ryan, I would bet you money he has not played a video game in the last 6 months. Maybe even a year or two. He does not strike me as a gamer at all, other than like staged media events. I don't think he's a gamer at all. And it's exactly what happens when you get somebody involved in business. Oh crap, what was his name? He was the former CEO of Pepsi, John Scully. John Scully, this guy. John Scully was the former CEO of Pepsi, and then he became the Apple CEO in the 80s, and he proceeded to just like totally destroy Apple. He almost drove Apple into bankruptcy. Apple as a thing almost just didn't exist. Like they almost went bankrupt in the 90s until they brought Steve Jobs back and he saved the company. However, the reason that he was so terrible is because he was a big business guy coming from Pepsi. He thought you could just come in, offer 15 different versions of the same product, sell it at different price points, and that you'd be billionaires, no problem. But he had no vision. He had no concern for what the consumer or customer actually wanted or anything that was exciting for the consumer. And so the company tanked, and he almost drove it into the ground. And that's, unfortunately, it seems to be a lot of what's happening with PlayStation right now. They came from Sean Layden. Sean Layden. Did I spell it right? I did. This guy ran PlayStation through the PS4 gen. He's responsible for all of those PS4 exclusives that did so well. This is the visionary behind them. And now it's all on this dude, Jim Ryan. And I don't think he has anywhere near the vision that Sean Layden had. I don't think he really understands gamers or gaming. He only gives a crap about revenue and the dollars on the bottom line. And you can tell. And it's only a matter of time before PlayStation gamers start to sniff it and start to realize what's going on. Because it stinks. It stinks. There's always going to be the sycophants that refuse to acknowledge that it's a problem. That's always going to be there. However, a good number of people, I think, are starting to wake up to it and be like, okay, well, screw you, Sony. Come on. And as we saw with the Xbox generation, no console manufacturer, no company is too big to piss off their fans to the point where they just stop supporting them. And with the Xbox, all of the crap they pulled with that eventually came back to bite them. And coming off of the 360 generation, nobody thought that Xbox could possibly suffer underneath any sort of pressures from outside, because they were the kings of the 360 generation. The idea that Xbox's next console would be a flop, or not a flop, but just would not do very well, in comparison to the PlayStation 4 was unbelievable. It was like, come on, dude, whatever. But while the PlayStation 5 is off to a strong start, for sure, off of the back of the PS4's success, I wouldn't be too hopeful for later generation success from Sony, because if they're already making stupid decisions like this, there's going to be a lot more. Mark my words. He took my thing.